Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where we make our own golden shiny wire of hope.
Oh man, we're using our aerodynamic movement gear to climb a wall that's keeping us in.
I dig that they kept the avalanche tag on the wall. I kind of wish it was gargantuan though, like the OG game, because that thing was all over the wall. I always thought it was left a big impression.
Did kinda, yeah.
Yeah. This place is definitely, given the situation in the remake's setup, is brighter than it was in the original game because you were still very much under the plate for most of it.
I do kind of wish it was dimmer though, so we could hide the map painting a bit better.
Yeah, this is where it gets like the most egregious. Where man, that's a JPEG in the background.
Didn't see it when we
Midgar. It's only a map painting.
The kind that's no use on the battlefield. If anything, it's a liability.
Well, the thing is, even under the plate, they have sun lamps in this continuity, so...
Yeah.
Aerith's up there waiting.
So we're getting some light from outside the plate, but most of the light right now is actually shining down from the plate. Having said that,
Ready?
I'm Batman.
this area is one of the more visually distinct in the game because I feel like the entire climb up the wall happens at sunset. So there's this freaking beautiful orange fiery light over the whole thing.
Yeah. This place is gorgeous, like matte painting aside. Like the place is gorgeous.
Yeah. They showed like bits and pieces of this off during pre-release trailers too, without enough context that we could tell exactly where it was, but it did look very nice just to see this kind of lighting in a given area. It's also important that they did it this way, though, because one of the things about the original game is that for the entire Midgar section, there was a pretty consistent visual style there, where everything was Midgar colored. Essentially, there was a single specific color scheme that Midgar went by, and nothing really deviated from that until possibly the inside of Shinra Tower. But obviously, we're in this one location for pretty much the entire 40 to 50 hour game here. So having reason to vary that color scheme up between the hours was, I would say, vital.
Yeah.
Why did this have to happen?
Okay.
You know, Sister Bree didn't start falling down until they showed up.
Maybe it's a sign.
Hey, you guys might want to turn around.
No.
A friend of ours needs help.
It's too dangerous.
For you, maybe.
Ooh, get shit on.
You know, that was quite rude considering the situation, man. You need to show me up like that.
Cloud's such a dick. Just try to be careful.
Anyway, it is neat to climb up onto the plate and find, like, there are survivors up here, because...
And a perfectly good vending machine.
And a bench.
The vending machines up here are like in Devil May Cry 5 before the final mission, when you're climbing up the frickin' the frickin' demon tree, and just randomly find this half-melted phone booth that still works.
That was actually, did any of you all play Astral Chain?
I still have not.
Okay, it's a good game. It's different than a lot of Platinum games in that it's a lot slower, and that's part of why I like it. But in that game, there's vending machines, and they all have their own, like, little personalities. Like, there's a grumpy one, there's a happy one, so on and so forth. There are, like, little alternate dimension areas in the game where, like, the world is being, like, sucked into the alternate dimension, and if you go into the alternate dimension and find a vending machine, like, they're sick, and they have, like, a little face mask and, like, X's over their eyes for the vending machine, and it's just really cute in that game. I was considering doing it for the channel, Astral Chain, but it's a really long game, and I'm really bad at it. And I figure watching someone who's bad at a Platinum game is not the kind of playthrough you want to watch.
That's why I'm not playing any of the Devil May Cry games.
Yeah.
But Ryan, we have a perfectly good recorded playthrough of Devil May Cry 4 from 2009 you could use.
4x3.
Oh man, just as God intended.
Oh man, Snyderverse ratio.
Yeah, 10-minute parts in 4x3. The BrainScratch cut.
So
That's what
one of
C
the
stands
things
for.
that I was unaware of for the longest time is that in Punisher mode, after you complete your basic melee combo, or actually, I think maybe even in the middle of a combo, you can hold the attack button and Cloud will just do this weird sort of downward stab into the ground as an attack. And it's a good way to finish off a combo, but...
It also gives him a Fury status. Very briefly.
Does it?
Yes.
Oh, what does that mean? Anyone who hits him after he does it, it fills his limit bar more?
It fills his gauges a little bit faster, yes.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that was a thing that happened. Okay.
Watch under his health bar the next time you do it, and you'll see a little icon there.
Oh, I see. Interesting that Cloud would have a built-in move designed to increase his limit bar faster. I love this combat system. I really do. It's freaking amazing how they managed to get like pretty much all of the merits that the turn-based system in 7 originally had, while doing so much with the action side of
See
things.
look right
Oh
right
yeah, I
there.
see it. Interesting.
It doesn't last very long, but it's there.
Lasts long enough that a boss could do a lot with it.
Yeah. And use that.
Yep.
All for a treasure chest that's somehow still on here.
Not so fast.
That thing must be, like, nailed to the ground.
A lot of the stuff up here must be nailed to the ground. It's like they expected to knock the plates down.
All right, get the nails.
We do have a perfectly good nail bat we could take them out of.
No, the
True.
nails do extra damage on the bat.
Using a bat as a nail weapon.
Anyway,
Then the nails stick to the bat. It's like,
All
yeah,
right,
just keep
one
it
of the enemies in this area, I forget if it's the dragon or something else, has an enemy skill, so you'll want to keep an eye out for that if you're paying attention. If you're paying attention to the enemy skill material at all. I'm not, so...
It might be Flamethrower from the Cerulean Drakes.
No, you don't get flamethrower in Cerulean City. That's the water type gym.
No, it
John.
said Cerulean Drake.
Gosh,
not,
you're a
not
fake
city.
Final Fantasy
Open your,
fan. Don't even know
open your,
that you don't
open
fight
your
the
ears.
water type gym.
I never played a Yakuza game.
You see someone go to actual Tokyo, and they're like, "Whoa, Tokyo! You mean from Persona 5?"
No, I mean from
You
Drakengard.
mean from Drakengard?
Yeah.
You mean Drakengard, which is actually a sequel to the bad ending of Chrono Trigger?
Okay.
I never heard of that one.
Well, that's because Drakengard actually is a sequel to one of the bad endings from Nier, or is Nier the sequel
Nier is
to
the
one
sequel
of the
to one of the
bad
bad
Nier
endings
is a
endings
of
from
sequel to
Drakengard.
Nier is a sequel to
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, but it's like specifically one of the bad endings. So it's like,
Yes.
listen, there's too many weeb games, all right? Like, I can't know all the memes about all of them at the same time. Who do you think I am?
I'm an internet
Oh, wait.
personality who should know all this stuff. According to the fans,
Absolutely.
anyway.
Okay, so so for a second I was going to talk about how I thought you guys were overreacting to it being a PNG, but then it was like I saw it at a specific angle where it became very obvious that it was a PNG.
Yeah.
it gets kind of pixelated in places. It's unfortunate because there are several points in this level where the characters themselves highlight the view, and the game obviously expects you to turn and look at the background. But
Not quite good enough for that.
yeah, it's weird because this kind of having a nice view in an area was something that they already did well in Final Fantasy 13. So it's just odd that this is a corner they cut here.
It's like, no, because were the background to look better, this would be legitimately a visually striking sort of thing. Like, you can tell that the things in front of you are very clearly there, and that the debris directly behind it is not, because that's just part of the background. You know?
Yeah.
Like, have they shown
like a
footage of this
very,
part
very
on
wide-
PS5?
I think it was part of the comparisons, yes. And it does look better.
Is it still a PNG, though?
I mean,
it kind of has to be.
It's
You
baked
know,
into.
there's
it's
no
baked
way
into-
you're rendering all this in real time.
It's baked into how the game works. so
It
you
is
can't
probably
get
just a
away with
higher
that,
res
but-
image, but that's fine as long as it's higher res.
Yeah. So it's one of those you can't really change how it works. So you just do the best you can with it.
Like I'm not a tech person, but I'm just trying to think of how you would make this work better. I think like maybe having multiple layers to the background image, you know, so it doesn't all just move all at once. And doing some, I know it's not
But how
parallax
much?
scrolling.
But
You-
how much
you
is
run-
That,
I
how
mean,
much
it's
is that going to
g-
strain
the-
the resources though?
So
Moving.
then-
Well, it's not even that. It's like, in essence, it's kind of the same as parallax scrolling. The problem is that they're still images, so then it kind of gives like almost a Paper Mario-esque effect where, yeah, they're moving on different layers, but they are still very flat objects. So I believe in that way it would take the player out.
We don't necessarily even need that kind of thing, though. They just need to be higher res so that they don't clash with the game's intended natural resolution. I mean,
I love how they reference this stupid line.
it's fine when we play a re-release of Final Fantasy VII and all of the 2D backgrounds are kind of blurry or pixely because they weren't originally intended to be played at 1080 because we didn't have a concept of HD at the time. But like, this is an HD game, and we're playing through HD levels as HD characters. But the background is SD for some reason.
Yeah, very PS1. Now it's the
Yeah,
inverse.
like you're okay when you play a port of Mario Kart 64. Like the characters and all the items are 2D sprites. You're like okay with that because it was a game that was released on the N64. You're a little bit less okay with that when you're playing the game on the PS4 or higher.
Well, it's more just like the game was made for this resolution, and they have these graphics assets that don't work with this resolution. So, like,
No, not at all.
Need to stay on mission.
They better keep PS1 their door though.
no.
No, I think that we've seen the last of PS1.
It's
door.
not PS1 door. It's just bad resolution door.
Yeah, PS1 door. That's what I said.
PS1 door.
It
Open your
doesn't
ears.
look even remotely PS1.
I don't know. It's kind of rectangle, low res
All
texture.
doors are rectangle.
PS1 to me.
though.
No, you can.
No,
you
not
can,
true.
You can have a circle door.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you live in Hobbiton.
There are
I mean, it still counts.
Yeah, so
there are
counts.
different
That argument
kinds
doesn't
of
exist.
low res textures. The one on the low res door at the end just looks blurry. Oh, here we are. We're fighting the soldier third classes. These guys are assholes because, like you, they use quite a bit of magic.
Yeah, just like the original game, they use tier 2 magic.
yeah,
too.
but how do they function in the Battle Royale mobile game?
No, they don't. Although you say that this is probably like the default character skin.
Yeah,
There's
That's
a
what-
Battle
that's what they're
Royale
doing.
Final Fantasy mobile game.
Yes.
Yes.
We touched upon this briefly, very briefly, in a couple parts ago, because we spent more time talking about Ever Crisis, which
I thought, yeah, that's
have
the
more
remake
interest
of Final Fantasy VII that's actually supposed to play like the PS1 game.
Yes.
Well, sort of.
No, it is just OG Final Fantasy VII using remake assets.
So they didn't even update the script at all?
As far as I know, it's just using the same retranslated PS1 script. Yes.
You know, I would like to see them retranslate the PS1 script, but like with a modern translation, instead of just like using this slightly updated PS1 translation.
Let's say, what would be a modern translation in a game that already has a contemporary setting? Though?
Well, like, no, but by a modern translation, I mean a translation that wasn't done in 1996. You know, like,
Well, no, but yeah, that was the original PS1 script that had a lot of typos and errors galore. But then they retranslated it again for like the PC release, and then that would be the basis for
yeah,
all
but it
Final
still
Fantasy
has
VII
that
ports.
same stilted kind of aspect to it that many PlayStation 1 translated games have, even if they're not full of typos. You know, it's not just the fact that there were typos and stuff like "this guy are sick," you know, that made the PS1 translation feel a little rocky.
Right.
There's a lot of places where, like, yeah, Final Fantasy VII is an example of all kinds of translation shenanigans that were common to the time. Because, yeah, we had, like, completely bad lines, too, but we also had places where the grammar was just odd. and you don't necessarily think about those while you're playing, but there are entire websites dedicated to comparing the original Final Fantasy VII translation to what it actually should have said, so that you might not notice that certain things are nonsensical while you're playing the game, but they kind of were.
Yeah, there's you compare how a PS1 game kind of reads to how even a PS2 game reads, and the differences are very, very striking. It really wasn't until the PS2 era where we started getting a lot of RPG translations that really read well.
It was around that time that anime started to become more mainstream in Western culture, and around that, and at that time, dub quality went up. Translation quality across the board started to go up. Voice acting that was tied to anime culture started to get generally better. So I guess there's just a lot more talent in the industry now that can do good translations for Japanese pop culture.
There is also
work.
a technical aspect too, where there were still space limitations on the PS1 for how much text they could hold and text box formatting and stuff like that. But yes, I do think that in general, just the quality of translation improved, and so that's what I mean by.
Is it the quality of translation or the quality of localization?
Both.
Because I feel there's a difference.
Both. I'm using the terms interchangeably here when I really shouldn't.
Okay.
But like a retranslated, relocalized script for Final Fantasy VII PS1, I would love to see, just to see like how it would read. You know, that's just something that I would find really interesting, especially when you see it from the official developers, because I'm not trying to diss fan translations here, because the people who do those stuff put in way more effort into their projects than I could ever put into anything. But the way a fan translation sounds and the way an official translation sounds just is very different, because they just kind of are. I don't really know what the reason for it is.
I think it depends on the intent of the fan
there
translation.
is a pretty good fan translation for Final Fantasy VII out. I forget what the pack of mods it comes with is called, Reunion or something or other. But essentially, like, the only purist thing in it is optional. Optional in a kind of snooty way. Like, when you install the mod, you have to check incorrect translations, incorrect naming or something like that, in order to keep the game calling things like sectors rather than districts or something, because people really think it should be district instead of sector.
Yeah, that is a little snooty.
But like, other than that, the translation's quite good. They generally do a good job of trying to make all of the text feel natural within the English language. I feel like a lot of the people who used to be into like the super purist fan translation nonsense have grown up over the past couple of decades and learned that localizing...
I mean, if they grew up, then they had children who were just as snooty, because
yeah, everybody's like that when they're like 14, though.
No, it's like a lot of the time you'll see like fairly well-known names within the fan translation communities who will talk about how they used to think that like pure translation was the way to go, but they eventually figured out that localization was more than just translation, and they had to get the feeling across along with the words.
That's part of why I respect the Ace Attorney Investigations 2 fan translation so much. It's as close to a Capcom translation as you can get without it actually being Capcom. And there's still like a couple tiny things that I think it falters on, but for the most part, it's just so well done. To the point where like they give everyone stupid pun names and stuff like that. And I was thinking about it because in between recordings, they announced that the Great Ace Attorney Daigokuten Saibon games are getting translated into English after like 8 years or something ridiculous. And they kept his name, the main character's name, as Ryunosuke, and it's actually Japan, and like the actual Capcom games just gave up on trying to say that this is actually America for them, because I guess
eat your hamburgers, Apollo.
Yeah. And also because of the extremely weird copyright shenanigans involving Sherlock Holmes, it is now Herlock Sholmes.
Herlock Sholmes actually originates from Arsène Lupin. because he did Sherlock Holmes versus Arsène Lupin story, right? But obviously,
Yeah.
Arthur Conan Doyle was still alive to complain, so he complained. So in response, the sequel story to that renamed the character Sherlock Holmes.
Which is also, I find, really funny.
They actually brought this piece of trivia up in Persona 5 as one of the classroom questions. That's how I found out about it, but I looked it up and it's true.
Yeah, it's also just kind of weird that, like, Sherlock Holmes is a character that simultaneously is and is not in the public domain.
Well,
which is really weird.
he's in the public domain now. He wasn't at the time because he was new. He was contemporary. But
Well,
like,
no, but I mean, like, even in modern day, you can't use Sherlock Holmes in certain ways. It's bizarre. I don't fully understand it. It has something to do with the way that the character's written in certain ways. Like, he can't have certain personality traits if you use him. Otherwise, that's...
are you sure
no,
that's
not good.
Are you sure
It's
that's a legal thing or just a pop culture thing?
Again, it's very complicated. It has something to do with the fact that some Sherlock Holmes stories are in the public domain and some are not.
Oh, I see.
So
Probably because like some of the more recent Sherlock retreads are technically their own IPs. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I do not claim to fully understand how it works. It's I need to do more Googling, but it's just, I don't know, I find it interesting.
But like, I had something in mind, but it slipped my mind. Anyway, for some reason, this one particular building makes me think of The Last of Us. Like, I could swear...
Oh, the tilted skyscraper with
like
the clickers.
Yeah, there were areas in The Last of Us that looked a lot like this, only, like, grassier.
Yeah, it needs more plants.
I'm the darkness. just
Do you have to do that every single time you do that class?
yes. Part of soldier training.
I'm imagining, like, Buster Sword-shaped batarangs that still fly somehow.
God. And they're the size of actual Buster
Yeah.
Swords. Where does he keep
I have a
those?
utility belt.
Oh my god. If you thought that Cloud carrying this stupid thing on his back was nonsensical, I'm just imagining like 20 of them stapled to his belt.
Oh, that's pretty much the fusion sword.
Yeah, the first Tsurugi.
In Advent Children, Cloud's sword is like 6 swords that combine into one bigger sword.
Which I really like, though. I always dug the first Tsurugi.
It's neat, but it also doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy VII weapon. I'm sorry, but like,
Yeah, the idea of a bunch of swords combined together sounds like something out of Final Fantasy 13.
it does. It really does.
Yes, it does.
The sheath, like, he actually has a sheath in Advent Children, but it's like a sheath with like 6 sheaths attached to it, or at least 3, because I know he can have like. The gimmick of the fusion sword is that because it's 6 swords, he can take one of the swords off and dual wield. I don't understand why it has to be 6 swords for that to happen, but I get the idea behind him having a different weapon in Advent Children, because after Final Fantasy VII is finished, Cloud is no longer channeling Zack, so he's trying to find his own unique fighting style, but like the fighting style they went with doesn't really say anything about Cloud personally. It just feels like rule of cool, you know? So it's like they had a cool justification for changing his style, but then they didn't have the style. They changed his style to say anything within that justification. So it kind of bugs me.
Good job.
All right. In any case, there's not a whole lot of exploration to do while you're on the climb up Shinra Tower, but there are a few treasure chests that you'll want to hunt down that are in slightly obscure locations, like over here, for instance. I'll go back to get it. I was a little bit tired while playing this, so I was like,
as both versions say, depending on how you use it, tells us a whole lot about you. I don't know how, but it does.
I was a little bit.
They kept that stupid line in this version.
I was a little bit tired while recording this, so I was like, I know there's a hidden treasure chest around here somewhere. Where is it? Where is it? No, that's the way I'm supposed to go. So obviously I missed the hidden treasure chest. And then I see the ropes over there, and belatedly remember that I saw a circle spawn in my view a few seconds ago, so I'm like, all right, I've gone and skipped it.
The
Haven't I?
lighting in this area is really nice, though, because it does a fairly realistic thing where if you're in a dark section, like, it just kind of looks like light outside the windows, and then when you walk outside the windows, the background slowly comes into view, which would be a really pretty effect if the background didn't look like it was
You
someone's
remember that was supposed to be
screensaver.
like I'm always reminded of Resident Evil 5 when that was initially making the rounds, because that was supposed to be a gameplay mechanic.
Well, that
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to see what was outside because it was sunny.
Because it was in a very
The
sunny
lighting,
setting.
the heat, there was supposed to be a hallucinations thing going on. They were messing around with the idea of more survival-based mechanics, but it wound up not actually happening, and Resident Evil 5 just turned into Resident Evil 4.3. Not even 4.5, just 4.3.
Yeah, it's like it couldn't even keep it the 5 moniker. Just
Didn't do quite
4.3.
enough to make the 5.
It's interesting though because like a daytime Resident Evil setting is like something that they've never tried to do again, and there's a lot of horror elements you can do with that, and they just haven't done it.
There were places in Final Fantasy. There were places in Resident Evil.
Final
There were
Fantasy V.
places in Resident Evil 5 that had very strong Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, which is troublesome in its own way. But setting that aside, but like they didn't manage to capitalize on that in any way, and they just and the way they designed the game wound up just focusing too much on action. So
And then 6 happened.
well, six is interesting because mechanically it's way more focused on action.
Oh, look, it's the end of the part.
But visually, though, 6 has more horror going on in its aesthetic than 5 does. So I don't know. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, or something.
Umbrella giveth and Umbrella take it away.